Good morning, everyone. I'm Charity Ronamo. Today, I'm going to share to you my study entitled Exploring the Experiences of the Physical Education Teachers during the COVID-19 Pandemic. In March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic caused severe disruption to everyday life around the world. As one of several measures taken to prevent in the spread of the virus, many governments closed schools for several weeks or months. Although school closures are considered to be one of the most efficient interventions to curb the spread of the virus, many educators and researchers raised their concerns about the effects of COVID-19 related school closures on students' academic achievement and learning inequalities. In response to school closures, UNESCO recommended the use of distance learning programs and open educational applications and platforms that schools and teachers can use to reach learners remotely and limit the disruption of education. To respond to the needs of learners, especially of the 3.5 million tertiary level students enrolled in approximately 2,400 higher education institutions, the Cotabato Foundation College of Science and Technology implemented proactive policies for the continuance of education despite the closure. The policies include modified forms of online learning that aim to facilitate student learning activities. Despite the researches that have been conducted to date, there is a great deal that we still do not know. Given the state of our knowledge, the purpose of this study is to examine the difficulties of running online class of the Cotabato Foundation College of Science and Technology physical education teachers during the COVID-19 pandemic and used the findings to develop an intervention plan to address these difficulties. Generally, the aims of this study are to determine the challenges encountered by teachers in teaching physical education during the COVID-19 pandemic, identify the teachers' coping mechanisms, and develop an intervention plan to better address the challenges encountered. The study employed a qualitative case study method using phenomenological procedures to collect and analyze the data. Turning to the nature of lived experience of research participants' online physical education classes. The study explored the experience of conducting these classes, discussed and reflected on their efficient operation and difficulties experienced therein, and examined the data by writing and rewriting. According to Creswell, 2007, a phenomenological study describes the meaning of several individuals of their lived experiences of a concept or a phenomenon. In other words, it focuses on describing a phenomenon that all the participants have experienced, such as the experiences of the CFCST physical education teachers during the COVID-19 pandemic. The participants of this study were the physical education teachers of the four colleges of the Cotabato Foundation College of Science and Technology. This study used thematic analysis in analyzing the data. Thematic analysis is a method of analyzing qualitative data. It is usually applied to a set of texts, such as interview transcripts. The researcher closely examined the data to identify common themes, topics, ideas, and patterns of meaning that come up repeatedly. The following are the themes that emerged as difficulties of running online class. Number one is low internet connection. Access to the internet has become a sore spot for the Philippines lately. Now that people are working from home, most are finding that their personal providers are slow, unreliable, or worse, unavailable, as in, there is no connection to the World Wide Web at all. One of the participants of this study denoted that we have lots of problems we encountered in conducting online classes. Number one is the unstable internet connection. Since we are using online platforms such as Google Meet, Google Classroom, Zoom, shared drives, and others, strong internet connection is really necessary. Chem 2020 reported that internet connectivity in the Philippines, dated 25/2020, 57% of Filipino households, or 12.2 million families, are still not connected to the internet, while those who have access experience slow download speeds. The next theme that emerged during the analysis of the data is the outdated device and software. Not all students or teachers use computer at home are frequent users or have sufficient data or internet access. There is a digital divide of reduced computer literacy in students from indigenous, lower socioeconomic, or regional rural backgrounds. Lack of technology in the classroom hinders literacy and work readiness. A new teacher survey has shown that teachers believe technology can boost pupils' literacy, but poor access to resources and outdated device means many are missing out. Young people are the main users of gadgets in education. More and more students around the world cannot imagine their learning without modern gadgets. Gadgets provide a huge number of new features designed to affect the improvement of the learning process to make it more fun, according to Albertini 2016. This was confirmed by one of the participants of the study when he said, "Some of my students cannot access to the instructional materials I have uploaded in the Google Classroom. And some of my students have low-end and outdated device and software. And every time I will request them for a live session, they have to go to the nearest internet cafe just to join." And the last theme is late submission of students' outputs. The topmost priority for every student is to stay up to date with their studies and assignments. Failing to submit work by the allotted time is a constant dread during the academic years. To address the different challenges encountered by teachers in teaching physical education during the COVID-19 pandemic, the following were developed by the teachers as coping mechanisms. Number one is use messaging apps which use least amount of data. Users are more and more often looking for messaging apps that use little data for calling and texting. Low data usage is especially important in those countries where the internet is limited. Also, it's important in those places where the internet speed is low or the internet accessibility is low. According to one of the participants of the study, I just let my students submit output in our GC because that is the most convenient for them. The next coping mechanism that the teachers have developed is giving consideration to students by providing more examples like video presentation. The use of videos stimulates the cognitive processes of thinking, reasoning, problem solving, decision making, and creating. Videos take the student beyond recall and relate activities. Use videos to engage viewers with more complex themes and to facilitate further engagement with the content. And the last teacher's coping mechanism that emerged during the analysis of the data is peer tutoring. Peer tutoring is a flexible peer-mediated strategy that involves students serving as academic tutors or tutees. Typically, a higher performing student is paired with a lower performing student to review critical academic or behavioral concepts. Peer tutoring is generally accepted as a strongly research-based and increasingly popular teaching technique that has positive impact on students. While the structure of peer tutoring can take many forms, generally the teacher provides the new content of a lesson and then structures the class so that students can drill the information in small groups. The following are the conclusions that were drawn from the study. The difficulties of running online physical education classes included: first, slow internet connection; second, outdated device and software; and third, late submission of students' outputs. To address the different problems and facilitate effectively the online physical education classes, use messaging apps which use least amount of data, giving consideration to students by giving more examples, and peer tutoring were employed by the teachers as coping mechanisms. And these are my references. Thank you, and may God bless us all.